All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to wish you a happy new year. Welcome back out to our winter speaker series. I, of course, am Julie Lassen. I'm the executive director here at the Cedar Lake Historical Association. And we moved over here today to get some heat, and lo and behold, I can't figure out the thermostat. So keep your coats on and feel free to, I don't know, breathe and warm up the room for us. As always, I have a couple of opening comments here for us. Again, a lot of you are members, some renewing members. If anyone wants to join, it's extremely easy, so we can help you with that. Let's see what else I have to share with you. So up next, all right, so today is Nick Mantis. He's going to be talking about Jean Shepherd. And then next month, February 5th, Joseph Pete will be coming. He is, you might have heard of him in the Northwest Indiana Times. He writes a lot of newspaper articles. So he's going to be talking about Secret Northwest Indiana. So that's his book. He'll be here to share that with us. Again, same room, we'll be in here. And then March 5th, Dr. Kenneth Schoon is going to be talking about George Pullman in his new book. And he's the one who had done the Calumet Beginnings book at talk. He wrote the book, came and gave a talk at the museum. So we've heard from him before. We've invited him out. And then I'm just reminding you, your email's coming, I promise. I didn't get a chance to get this out to you yet, but your new member portal, where you'll be able to register for events and renew and all sorts of fun things like that. So I left this in from last month's slide. And of course, a reminder, has anyone made the trip up to the Field Museum yet to see our exhibits? Not yet. We're actually working with the Cedar Lake Parks Department. We're going to see if we can't figure out taking a bus up there so that we can all go together. So it's still in the works, and we're not sure how much it's going to cost because, of course, we have to pay for the bus. But that would be the only expense. Maybe. I don't know if the field will let us in as a group, or there might be another small expense. But you'll get to explore the entire museum, not just the gallery that our exhibits are on display. But in the meantime, calumetvoices.fieldmuseum.org is where you can go to see a preview of the exhibition. So if you don't have time to get up there yet. And another announcement that just came to fruition yesterday, so if you remember last year we had a couple of dine-out nights. We're doing that again this year. So the first one is this month, Wednesday, January 25th, La Dia, which is right here next to Strax in Cedar Lake. So all day long. 10% of the proceeds all day long from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. So you want to come for lunch, dinner, both. We would love to have you support us. And then Tuesday, February 28th is going to be at Chick-fil-A in Cherville. That one's only from 5 to 8 p.m. and it's tricky because you have to place your order on the mobile app. We'll figure all that out as the time gets closer and explain how that's going to work. Nancy and I have already realized that that's going to be our evening as far as helping everyone get their orders in there. That's the only way you end up getting the credit towards your event. So anyhow, but pay attention. You can come and eat with us and have a nice time. So those are our winter gatherings. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any other questions for the new year? Otherwise, we'll do that at the end as well. But okay. So we're going to begin today. I'm going to turn it over to Nick Mantis. Nick is the executive producer and director of a documentary, Shep, Life and Career of Master Storyteller Jean Shepherd. For those of you who aren't really familiar with who Jean Shepherd was, he's also going to explain that. And like I said, once we turn off the recording is when he starts revealing some of the secret information that'll be coming out in the documentary just for our audience today, okay? So if you would join me in welcoming Nick.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thanks for coming out today. My name is Nick Mantis. I am a region native. I grew up in Hammond, Indiana. I was born in East Chicago. And I lived in Hammond up until 8th grade, and then we moved to St. John. And so we went from the very industrial neighborhood that I grew up in on State Street, just a few blocks from downtown Hammond, where, you know, Goblat's, Minus, Milliken's, and all those wonderful stores were at. And I was grateful that my upbringing had so much culture, Hammond, Hoosier culture in the downtown area. And like the movie A Christmas Story, which made Jean Shepherd very famous, the window display at Higbee's that is famous in the movie for their animatronics, I was able as a child to see that growing up. And maybe some of you as well. So I related to that and that growing up. But then we moved to St. John into the farm fields, brand new neighborhood. And I got to play in the woods and fish, and we made forts. And it was such a diverse and opposite growing up that I was able to expand my knowledge and experience of growing up in two different worlds. So I felt like I had two different lifestyles growing up. One, railroad tracks and junkyards and polluted rivers, to brand new neighborhoods and ponds, and ironically fishing, and that we'll talk about a little bit today. And so I always felt very close to the region. And so, I got started doing local cable shows. I worked in Chicago. My parents wanted me to go to Chicago and work in law firms. They wanted me to go to law firms and go to law school. So I got 10 years experience working in Chicago. And the very first law firm that I worked at right out of my undergrad was, I worked for the very first graduating attorneys that practice environmental law. They were out of Northwestern, and I got quite an experience from that group. I worked there for 3 years. And my first day of school, and coming from St. John and, and Hammond, that background, I was kind of environmentally aware. And not to go too far into the story, but my first day of school, I thought we were going to defend or go after the polluters. And I was all pumped up because, polluters, who likes polluters? But I found out that first day that we defended the polluters. And it was quite an eye-opener for me. So, but I'll tell you the truth, it was even a more greater experience for me because it's very detailed, and the regulations were very loose, and the laws were vaguely written, and the group that I worked for, man, did they have quite a racket going on, because our clients were the biggest oil, gas, and chemical companies out there. Yet if they hired a hauler to take care of their waste fuel and dump it correctly into a facility, but that hauler decided to, pitch it somewhere else, is it our client's liability for that? So from that perspective, I got a lot of experience learning more about the regulations and the whole environmental scene. But I got tired of the legal field after 10 years, and I didn't want to hear other people's problems for the rest of my life, so law school was out. I had enough of it. And one thing that I always was reminded of working in Chicago was, Northwestern, you live in Indiana? To all the attorneys I worked for that were in Wilmette and Winnetka and Deerfield and all these very upscale neighborhoods, and they would ask me how long did it take me to get to work, and I'd say 45, 50 minutes. I would drive after taking the South Shore for a while. I just ended up driving, and I'd ask them how long did it take you, and they'd say an hour and 20 minutes, and I'm like, I live closer to Chicago than you do. But the one thing they got was, a farmer, steel worker. That was the kind of stereotype that we got here in Northwest Indiana from the people that worked in Chicago, especially those that I worked for. And I kind of got sick of it. And when I went to Lake Central, we used to have a TV station, Channel 50. And I don't know if you guys remember Channel 50. But that's a whole nother story that I've been looking into. But anyways, that was our only TV station we had. And it was kind of a high school production, I will admit. And a lot of my friends worked there. And I realized if we're going to change the stereotype of Northwest Indiana, we got to do it through television. And even though we have Channel 56, PBS, they're PBS. They can't advertise for the local businesses and, have the freedom of, creating content, broadcasting it, and putting the spotlight on the things that make Northwest Indiana positive. So what I did was I went ahead and put it all on my shoulders, and with one of my buddies that worked at Channel 50, we started to create local TV shows. And so I try to promote Northwest Indiana, be it an event, an individual, or an organization that was doing something positive for Northwest Indiana. I was going to be there and try to promote that. And I did that for a good 7 years until Comcast took the channel away from me, the least access channel, where I could advertise for local businesses, give them some exposure, and they decided to keep the channel for themselves and advertise what Comcast was doing on Channel 3 at the time. And this is the early 2000s, mid-2000s. So I didn't have a way to broadcast local television anymore. But during the very end of that time, someone from the downtown city council, or I should say the downtown Hammond council, they got a hold of me and said, Nick, you grew up in Hammond. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we'd like to do a 25th anniversary recognizing Gene Shepard, actually connecting the city of Hammond to the movie A Christmas Story. So I was all about it. I'm like, yeah, why not? It's time to move on from doing stuff done on a local level and maybe, work on something on a major scale here. And so we did that. We worked on it for about 6 months, and we put a little video together that connected the city of Hammond to the movie A Christmas Story but nothing much about Gene Shepard himself. But I had heard and read a little bit about Gene Shepard, and a buddy of mine who also went to Lake Central, he kind of got in my ear a little bit. He goes, "Wow, you should do something on Gene Shepard. You know, he did so much." And I didn't know the guy had a radio, broadcast on WOR radio show for 21 years. I didn't know he influenced the people like Woody Allen or Hugh Hefner or Steven Spielberg or Jerry Seinfeld and people like that. I had no idea. And so it kind of, I listened to a Gene Shepard, a little excerpt on YouTube, and I couldn't get that guy's voice out of my head. And so before we get into it, I wanted to say that I wanted to do something for the guy.